friends. This is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average Canadian wolfpack come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A safe space where being yourself is the ultimate goal. Each week we will bring you new episodes sharing our experiences on a ton of different topics in hopes we get a better understanding of ourselves, each other, and this crazy world we live in. We want to build a community where we can show up as ourselves, be real, and lay it all out there. By sharing our experiences, we hope to reach others who can relate so we can all help each other learn, grow, and heal. But please keep in mind, as a disclaimer, none of us here are professionals. No one is giving any advice. We are strictly speaking of our life experiences, our opinions, and for entertainment purposes only. Now, with that being said, grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. We hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you guys so fucking much from the bottom of our hearts for coming back time and time again. Those that don't know me, my name is Brandy and I am the host of the show. And today, y'all, we are on episode 97. Just one sec there. 97. Can I get a hell yeah? Yeah. I'll do it by myself. And I'm so excited, you guys, because this is actually our 5th episode on this topic, but this episode is BII from Down Under. So we are going to be talking again about breast implant illness. It's kind of beautiful because our very first episode that we talked about this is 1 year to this month in December. We decided to have on our first babes share their personal experiences, ones that I actually know in my real life, and how they were affected by their breast implants, and been supporting them their whole journey and watching them. And it was just so amazing to have them on the show. And that just kind of sparked my need to continue to share these stories, because I think although there is a lot of talk about it now and over the last couple of years, I still think not a lot of people, have any idea that this even exists. So I think the first step is sharing awareness so that, hey, it might not be you today, it might not be you ever, but the last thing I want to see is women suffer and be hurt and be essentially dying on the inside with no answers. And perhaps this isn't for you, or maybe it's not you, but maybe down the road it might be. And wouldn't it be nice to have this in your pocket already, knowing like, hey, if all else fails, maybe that's what it is. And since some of these women have had to be on their deathbeds to figure out what is going on with them. So I just feel like I am not going to stop sharing on this. And I'm just so grateful for all the survivors, everyone that's been through it, sharing their stories. Like I said, this is going to be our 5th episode on it in 1 year. So over the 2 seasons, we've had 5 episodes on it. And you're going to always see this in our seasons. I promise you that, because I just believe sharing is caring. And although I have not been under the knife myself, the reason why I mostly haven't is because these women, and I just feel I would be that person as well. So I just want to protect those that are like me, and feel super grateful for the women and survivors who have spoken out, who have saved me from all of that, because you guys know how much of a freak I am right now about what goes in my body. Like where would Brandy be if she was in that right now, right? So I'm just super, super grateful. So guys, before we jump on to our guests, also, I'm running out of shows to show all my amazing Christmas shirts. So those that don't see, I'm wearing Griswold's Family Vacations, got the car, burn some rubber, eat my dust. That's probably my favorite Christmas movie of all time that I represented today. But guys, before we jump onto the episode with our amazing guest, please make sure that you like this video if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. We are still trying. We just opened our Rumble account, so you'll be seeing us in 2023 on Rumble. Also started us a Pinterest page, so you are looking for a free version of the show and on an app that you don't get, social media bamboozled, a little bit more. We are going to be on Pinterest. And then also, guys, turning on those notifications on your podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to us, so that you get an immediate notification on Fridays when your new episodes launch. Anyways, guys, I will shut the fuck up and get to the show, because this one is just, I hate to say I love it, because that makes me feel like a piece of shit being like, oh, I love her, like their stories, because they're obviously hurt, but I just love the power that comes from healing and trying to help others. So that is why I say that. Please don't get it twisted that I'm glad that they've gone through this because I have boob envy, because that ain't it. Like, I have to look at boobs somewhere, so I'm glad y'all get them. No, I can't. But anyways, guys, hope you're having a great fucking week, and let's get on to the show. All right, babes, it is time to get on to the show, and I'm so excited to introduce our guest, you guys. She is joining us today from Adelaide, Australia, whole different time zone. I'd like to introduce our babe, Bianca. Hey, girl, how's it going?
Hey, Brandy. Good. Thanks. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for joining me on what I believe is your Saturday and my Friday.
Correct. Yes, we're in the future.
It was kind of blowing my mind. I'm so glad when we start talking, you're like, oh, by the way, I'm from Adelaide, not Sydney, because
Yes.
your girl doesn't know much about over there. And that's exactly what I would have Googled, and I would have messed us up for timing. So thank you for being aware of the lack of knowledge on
No
that.
worries. It's only through experience that like everyone assumes Australia is Sydney. Like there are prettier places like Adelaide, I promise.
That's amazing. And honestly, what I found even funnier is that there's a half an hour. Most people, when my time difference is, it's full hours. And with you, it was like, and half an hour. I was like, that one's new for me. So good. So if everyone, you don't know, time changes aren't just full hours. They could be half an hour. So I learn new stuff every day.
I like to joke around like I'm a bit of a dad joke queen sometimes, and we're Adelaide from Sydney.
Oh.
There's a delay.
Oh my gosh, I love that. You gotta add the dad jokes whenever you can, because it doesn't matter how cranky or salty someone is, they're always gonna, maybe they don't smile on the outside, but inside they're going, that was bad, but that was good. All right, guys. So before we jump on to the show and talk a little bit more at the topic at hand, love, can you tell the community a little bit more about yourself and what you do? Anything fun like that?
Yeah, cool. So as Brandy mentioned, I'm from Adelaide, South Australia. I think we're a similar age. I'm 36, so I turned 36 in August this year. Yeah, happy birthday for last week. I'm a fur dog mum to a golden retriever and Maltese cross, and forever will be. I have worked in multiple industries. So I started fast food, retail. I was a personal trainer for a little while, worked in the fitness industry for about 4 years. So I've done like swimming teacher, aqua aerobics instructor, group fitness, desk, one-on-one personal training. This is a long time ago now. And currently by day, I am a data analyst, so human resources data analyst stuff, nerdy stuff, which I really surprisingly enjoy. And then by night, I do my own little podcast as well.
I forgot to mention that. I was like, oh, what's your podcast name so I could drop it? And then I just, anxiety and I blank. So yes, make sure guys to follow her podcast as well. That's how I found you, because I can't remember, someone shared it and I was like, oh, a podcast dedicated to this, because I'm seeing a lot more women, there was lots of guests, which is amazing, first start. And I think maybe, I'm not sure if that happened with yourself, but I think then they realize how powerful their voices are and how much of a difference sharing their experiences. And, when people start a podcast, where it's like, what are we going to talk about? And I find personal experience is so not easy, because you have to be very vulnerable, but you can't really argue someone's personal experience. It's not an opinion. It's not, it's political. People fucking try to make it that way. But at the end of the day, it's your experience. And no matter what, people can't really argue that with you. Right. So
absolutely.
I love to see that now it's like not just episodes, it's now full podcasts being like, yo, this deserves more than just, a handful of episodes. So very excited to go follow her, guys.
That's why thanks. That's why I started it as well, because when I was sort of finding out about BII, breast implant illness, there were like one-off episodes, and they were generally influencers or famous people with a big following. And I'm just like, Adelaide's kind of like country town in comparison to the bigger cities in Australia. So I'm just from like a small town, and like I'm just, a regular Joe kind of thing. And I saw that gap. Like I just wanted to make something that people connected with. And so my podcast sort of shares my story from, I recorded episodes before I even had my explant. So nice. Talking about why I had it in the first place, what I did to prepare, and then I gave my updates. Now I'm at a point in the podcast where I have, I don't really have much else to update, I don't think. Like maybe I will do a 6 month, a 12 month, and then 2 years maybe. But like I'm now sharing the stories of other women too, because I saw that gap. And there's definitely more podcasts that have launched specifically about BII since then. But it was like, there's this gap. And what can I do? What can I do to help people after going through this experience? So
Yeah. Oh, and that's so amazing. Honestly, it's such a weird thing to be like, "Oh, I'm so happy for you," because it's like that came out of pain and there was so much like hardship out of there. But what we really truly love is unfortunately we can't stop bad things from happening or shitty situations. But when those people have gotten to that point where it's like, I feel strong enough to share and be vulnerable to save others, it's like, ooh, gives me goosebumps. It just, it's just such an empowering moment for yourself and for others. And one thing we notice on the show is when we share stuff like this, it has such a ripple effect. And most people don't know other people's struggles, especially with social media, right? It's like, oh, everything looks great. Like all your pictures look good. No one knows you're sick, especially those with like invisible diseases, right?
visible.
Like a lot of the stuff with BII, most people, I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of the girls that I talk to, it's like they attribute those to a lot of other things, especially let's say women in the fitness industry. And I'm sure you can speak to that as well, is that they attribute it to being like, oh, I'm training too hard, I'm not eating enough, or to that lifestyle, not even thinking for a second like, oh my god, it's my boobies, like, or
Yeah, yeah,
could be, right?
yeah, yeah. For me, it was
Mom.
absolutely like 36. Like, is this joint pain happening and I'm not recovering from workouts because of like being 36, not being 22 anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah, like,
exactly.
and there's definitely so many other things along the way, like my dad being unwell. Was that the reason why my hair fell out? Like all those kind of things. So yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find with BII, it's such a broad spectrum depending on who you are and what your body was kind of probably at before you had them, what you did during them. It's such a broad range of symptoms, and they're so different person to person. And I think that's why so many people dismiss it because, it's like, and there's lots of people that have implants. So, and that, that have other things. And again, when doctors aren't relating it and, big pharma, not big pharma, but like the beauty industry is pushing it and how safe and effective these things are, that's the last thing that I think people think because they've been around for so long. People don't put two and two together until now, like where people are speaking out about it. But let's kind of go back. So, what I like to ask is kind of everyone's definition of BII because, again, I've never had it and everyone's different. So, maybe for those tuning in for the first time that aren't sure what breast implant illness is, may you give us a definition of what that is to you in your experience?
Sure. So I'll start by saying I'm like not medically qualified, but I've done a lot of research myself to sort of get to the bottom of this. And it is absolutely a really good question. I've got notes just to make sure that I cover everything, like my understanding of it. But it's almost like an autoimmune or inflammatory reaction that the body's having to having a foreign body in it. And like your body creates this scar tissue, or they call it the capsule, to protect your body from the implants. So it's like, it's disgusting. Like I had no idea that it was a thing until I started looking into breast implant illness. I've heard the term capsular contracture, and
Yeah.
I had that. I absolutely had that in both boobs. And like I just thought, oh, they're just hard because they're implants. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You never, yeah.
So
Yeah. You
yeah.
never
So
had them
that's
before. So how would you have known,
no.
right? Like you're just like, oh,
Yeah,
this is how they
exactly.
feel. Makes sense.
Yeah. And like I know you've said it before, and I like in your podcast episodes, and I was only saying it honestly like a couple of days before listening to your episode, but my body just does not want anything in it that's not supposed to be there. So I had the implants, sailed along okay, I guess, for a little while, but it was again getting used to those funny little symptoms, and it's like, yeah, oh, I'm working out too much, so I'm too tired. But then I also had surgical mesh put in on my ovary because my ovary had attached to my bowel after having an ovarian cyst removed. So I was in. I've got a history of my explant surgery was surgery number 13 for me. Yeah.
Well, but that would have at least
Um,
like was hopefully going to eradicate like a lot for you, hopefully, right?
yeah. Yeah. So I feel like the symptoms got worse or really started to be obvious after having the mesh put in. I don't know if it's dissolvable mesh. I don't remember what my surgeon told me.
Yeah, well, fair.
And I'm in the process of trying to find that out at the moment. And then again, it got worse when I had a hormonal IUD put in. So I know you've spoken about birth control, and I'll cover that a bit later in the episode. But yeah, like it's like, and my understanding, like the IUD, the Marina that I had, actually has silicone, like a little silicone coating on it. I'm not sure if that's like 100%, but if my body's going to react badly to having silicone, like massive things of silicone in there. Like, it's not going to like having this extra bit. And I feel like
In a
where that
sensitive
is placed
spot.
is a sensitive area. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
like, that's sort of my understanding of it. The fact that the body doesn't want that in there, and it just throws everything at
Freaks out.
it.
Yeah, it's thrown everything in the kitchen
Absolutely.
sink. Like, "Fucking what is this? Get it out, get it out." And that's one thing too that I find is kind of wild when you kinda think about all like, just all those things that you said, and I'm also so sorry that you've had to deal with that. What I find crazy is there's a lot of women that are in the same position that are like, "Hey, I had, got implants or whichever, some foreign maybe Botox or fillers, and then they're on birth control, and then, we're having these crazy lifestyles and over everything. No wonder why everyone's sick and overstressed and their bodies are like, what are you doing to me? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
people aren't sleeping properly to let their bodies like it's just not stopping. And all the mental stress the last couple of years. And it's just really shitty because no one is stopping and being like, okay, hold on, what are we doing here? Like
Yeah.
it's funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny, but I find it's everyone's story. They find that one thing that they kind of got lied to or deceived. Me, it was birth control. That was my first one. Like I got messed up when I was 16 years old, and it was all
Same.
these fake promises. And I was like almost dying from every birth control, blood clots from the patch. Like it was
Hmm.
not a good time for me. Meanwhile, the doctors were always telling me, everything's fine. You're fine. This is normal. I'm like, this isn't
Mm.
normal. And now at
Yeah.
36, I'm still getting this cystic acne that I have to deal with because I didn't deal with coming off the birth control properly. So now my body's still not balanced. And it's like, we've been fed a lie for so many things. So it's like, I think that's probably how it happened for you, right? You're just like one thing after another. And you're like, okay, but hold on. This is now in my body. Like, and I'm not
Mm.
saying that it is, but it's always good in my mind to have that thought there. So if what you're doing with your lifestyle isn't working, maybe that's the next space to look at, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Don't
and
think
being an
about it.
analyst by day, like I'm always like, all right, what's causing this problem? What have I changed? There's absolutely that going on, but I never would have thought it was my implants that was
No.
causing all this. Like, absolutely not.
And to that, do you want to walk us through like how is it that you found out like from like so let's kind of maybe go back. So let's talk about can we talk about how you got implants and how the first little bit was and how you became to find BII? Like some of our girls, like you'll find out. I won't ruin it for you'll find out Heidi's way is very similar to one of our girls, Bella. Bella was actually in the hospital almost dying, and she just seen it on the TV,
TV.
and it
Yeah,
was like
yeah,
this is what's happening to you. And she was literally like calling her husband, I'm gonna die because I can't, like, I'm dying. And they thought she had an emergency explant. Thank goodness the money was raised for her to get it done. But like that wasn't no doctor that told her that. That was no practitioner of any kind. That was actually shocking mainstream media out of all places.
yeah, for sure. So with my story, sort of going back, my mum actually brought up implants when I was 13. Um, and my mum's the kind of person where if you don't like something, fix it, right?
Yep.
So it's
Fair.
not like, and she's not, what people would probably consider your typical breast implant person, which is absolutely not a thing, but she's not plastic fantastic.
Yep. Yep. Fair.
She's just like, she's me with short hair, basically. We're just general, everyday people. But yeah, we kind of noticed that I just never developed. So mum's probably a D cup.
Mhm.
I'm then one of like 5 children, so one son and then 4 daughters my mum had. So one sister has had a reduction. Another
That's like my
one has
family.
questioned. Another
But
one
like
has
gets
considered
smaller as the
having.
age goes down.
Yeah, well, they kind of got smaller, and then my next sister after me has normal boobs for her size. She's the one that we were talking about just before I think we hit record, and she's had a couple of kids and was considering breast implants, but now after hearing about what I went through, she's like, nope,
Yeah,
absolutely not.
probably not.
But yeah, so 2 sisters with like huge norks, like massive boobs. I don't even know what size my sister was when she had the reduction, but she had like back pain and stuff,
Yeah.
and she's quite short. Like
Yeah.
I'm 5'4", so I'm short myself, but she's probably about 5 foot. So to have these massive boobs, like her upper back, her posture was bad. So yeah, she went through that. Yeah, the other older sister would absolutely get a reduction done herself, but she's got some caring responsibilities.
Yeah.
So yeah, like then out of all of that, there's like little old me, and like flat chested. And I was also like getting, I wish I'd stayed that way. I was also getting bullied quite a lot at school. So like in primary school, like year 6, 7, all the girls are starting to develop at that age and I didn't. And like, people would be like, oh, I can see your crop top through your t-shirt kind of thing, or like, oh, you got no boobs, and like, that kind of stuff. I wish I could go back and tell me back then. It's like, they're trying to bring you down because you're clever or you're like nice to people, and they're trying that, it's their insecurities that are making them bully you. But there's no telling someone at that age in that situation. Like my mum tried. She's like, oh, my mum really tried. Like she was like, oh, they're bullying you because they're jealous of you and all that kind of thing. But like, what would you know, Mum? Like she'd been through bullying herself, but I wouldn't listen to her.
It's not cool.
And then in high school, I remember sitting there and there was this bully, and like pretty sure, like I've looked him up since then. I'm pretty sure he's been to prison. So like, he's done well in life.
I'm a bitch.
He sat there one day and he just went like, oh, you don't have boobs. You've just got fat rolls pushed up into a bra. And I just sat there. I'm like, that doesn't make sense because I don't have boobs anyway. But like, it was just the constant bullying about it. Yeah. And then the first year out of high school, I didn't realize it, but I had this 7.5 or 7.6 kilogram or 17-pound ovarian cyst on my left ovary. So I looked pregnant, like, and this, I went through a bit of a religious phase straight out of high school, and knew I wasn't pregnant, like it wasn't possible. But I went to one doctor. She told me, oh, you've got gas. I'm like, oh yeah, cool.
Why did I think of that? I'll just take a gas X and we'll be fine.
Yeah, that's exactly what she said. Take my Lanta, off you go. And then so went back to her another time. I said, maybe it's a food intolerance. And she's like, yeah, cool. Here's a referral to a dietitian. There's a 6-month wait. And then I went to another doctor, bang, 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 scan, follow-up appointment, booking in with the surgeon, cyst removed within a week and a half of seeing that GP. Like, amazing.
Isn't that crazy how the care changes, like, from just doctor to doctor? Like, how do you know going to a practitioner if you're going to get the one that just tells you got to fart, or the one that's like, oh no, you actually have a cyst? Like, how do you know that?
Yeah.
Like, it's that scary.
She was so worried from the get-go. And my older brother, like, he is like, he's a beefcake, big muscly guy, but he's such a softie, and he was so upset when that happened. That he was like, oh, I'm going to go to the lab and get this cyst and plonk it on the desk of that first doctor that you saw. Like, does
this look like that to you?
Yeah, exactly. But like, I'd kind of gone through this, like, looking pregnant. I had people asking me if I was pregnant. Nothing like I wore worked, and I had these tiny boobs and this big belly, and then suddenly the belly was gone. And that was when Mum sort of said, why don't you look into breast implants again? But what she actually had initially said was, why don't you try a fat transfer? So I did go to I think he was like a plastic surgeon first, because there's plastic and reconstructive surgeons. And he's like, you have tuberous breasts. And that's like almost like a deformity of the breast. Like they weren't a boob shape. And if my boobs were a boob shape, I probably would have never done anything. I would be happy with small boobs. It's fine. But they were tuberous. So lacking underneath, and they're kind of like pointed downwards. And just not pretty. So he's like, I can't do a fat transfer because you don't have the volume skin or any like the shape volume there to put fat into. So he referred me on to a reconstructive surgeon, and she basically said, look, what we can do is put some tissue expanders in, which is basically like this boob-shaped thing with a little bladder behind it, and you have a port that goes into your armpit. And every 2 weeks I went to her to get saline inserted into the tissue expander. So they slowly grew, and I'm glad, because my skin's the kind of skin that will get stretch marks super easily. Like it's just not high quality skin, even when I was younger.
Yeah, fair.
And I still managed to get a few like through the top, but like doesn't really matter. So we just sort of slowly grew them. I probably didn't even fit into a double A cup before this, and then we got to a point where I was maybe a C cup.
Oh, okay, nice.
And that's all I went to. Like I didn't go to anything massive.
Triple X.
Yeah, just something just something, because I'm quite broad-shouldered, like something that suited my shape. So we went with that. So yeah, once I got to the desired size, I just left it. Like they sat for a couple of months, and then I went in for another surgery. So I went from having 2005 cyst removed in, I think, end of September, to having the tissue expanders November the 18th that same year. So this is his first year out of high school, right? Like I just turned 19 when all this started happening. Yeah. And then July the following year, after having the tissue expanders sitting there for a few months, we swapped them over for they were can I say the brand? Like,
yeah, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, cool. So they were Allergan textured implants.
Okay, yeah.
So they were gel implants with the texture on the outside, and they were like a 290cc teardrop shape, so very natural looking. Yeah. And I remember waking up from surgery, and my surgeon uses this like a sticky foam dressing, and like I was like, the morphine hit me hard in recovery for that surgery. So Mum had some fun with, like, I was like hitting the morphine button, not realizing that I didn't need to keep hitting it, and I was just like off with the fairies. But like recovery was pretty good from both of those. Like I was working in the fitness industry at the time, but like I'd made friends with a few members, so I'm pretty sure I was back at work within 2 weeks of having the implants put in.
Wow, nice.
And it was just, I couldn't lift the heavy weights to put them away. So I was like a gym instructor at that time, so we kind of just showed people how to use the equipment, and then tidied up the gym at the end of the night. And that was when like some members would hang back to try and like to help me to put stuff away. I was super lucky. Yeah, really, really, really good. Yeah, so the recovery was great, and like this was just shy of my 20th birthday, so I had it done in July, and my birthday was the 20th birthday was the 12th of August, like, you know, the next month. So I loved them. Like they were great. Like suddenly I did feel like I could wear a normal dress. Like I couldn't wear baby doll stuff because I didn't have the shape there, and especially when I had that big cyst, because I'd have like flat chest and then look pregnant, like that would show that off. So that was the whole sort of experience of getting them put in. Like I didn't really have any issues, I don't think, for a while. But when I look back now, I think it was by the time I was about 24, I had noticed my lefty, which was bigger in the my lefty and my righty. My lefty had it was bigger before I had the surgery, so I think the implant on that one was maybe slightly smaller. I can't really remember. My mum was like going through all of my appointments with me. She was there for all of them, so it's like, you know, I was 19, so she was doing a lot of the talking for me, just out of like, caring, like, you know, being a caring person. So I don't really remember, you know, the sizes and stuff. But yeah, by about 24, I think looking back, it was probably that's when the capsular contracture started on that side. So I just remember laying down and feeling like, being a teardrop shape, so obviously like fuller at the bottom, it felt like it had flipped upside down. Mine were on top of the muscle, so that wouldn't like it. I mean, I'm assuming it's not possible, but more likely than it would be if it was stuck under muscle. So yeah, I just remember feeling, I was like, oh, I don't know if that's normal, but I was like, I don't want another surgery. I've already had enough by now. I'm good. And then just kind of went about life. So like, I've got this terrible flaw to my personality where, and I think so many women do this, but like we slowly get used to things over time, and it's almost like you subconsciously work around those things. So sort of going back to when I was 25, I had another ovarian cyst removed when I was 22, another one when I was 25, and then that never healed properly.
It is attacking
That's
me.
why I'll be a dog mum forever.
What is going on? We need to sit down and talk to your ovaries. What's happening here?
Yeah.
It's hard to have a little time out here. Stop.
I named one Ophelia, so I'll have a chat with her later, being like, what are you doing, mate?
Sometimes it's easier just to put a name to it so then you can address it correctly. Right? Like I was a name inanimate objects thing, so I can just yell at it. It makes me feel better.
There you go. I'm not the only one.
Yeah, nope, you're not alone there.
So my right ovary latched on to the outside of my bowel when it was repairing after having the cyst removed. So they don't actually sew up an ovary. I'm guessing it's not possible based on the type of tissue it is. So it's like latched onto my bowel, and then it was trying to come back to where the ovary was normally sitting. So I was having a lot of pain. like needed before I needed to go to the toilet.
Yeah.
You know, intercourse was painful. There was a lot going on. Went and had the surgery where they put the mesh in. So it wasn't something that was discussed with me before the surgery, but as I came out of, I was like in recovery, and I'm guessing my surgeon had to like leave. So he like forced me awake, and I was like, I just wanted to throw up. It was so like, I just was not ready.
No.
But like, you never tell someone stuff in recovery. Like, they're not going to remember it. Like, you know, they've got so many painkillers pumped through their system. So he did say to me, like, what's that? Like, there's a clock on the wall, but I don't know what's
what
a
does
clock?
that even say? What's the numbers? What's the clock? Who am I? Please tell me very important information right now. I'm in a really good spot to listen.
Yeah. And that's exactly what he did. He was like, oh, look, like we fixed the issue, like everything's fine, because they were a bit worried about damaging my bowel. So that's why I had to go to this like real specialist in this kind of thing. And he's like, I'll put some mesh on the outside of your ovary just to avoid this happening again. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, and
thanks.
Yeah, off I went. But I think that's when the real symptoms started to happen. So I tend to, and I know this like off by heart by now because I have had so many surgeries, but about 6 months after having anesthetic, my hair starts to fall out. And I've done some research. You've actually got like a few different cycles of hair growth and hair loss, but it's like when you've had anesthetic, you tend to go through the hair loss cycle for a bit longer. And that started around the 6-month mark, which is normal. It's starting again for me now post explant, and it just never stopped. And I was like, okay, this is odd. There's just a few things that kind of happened that I was just like, it's a bit weird, like about it. But you know, it might be because having anesthetic, and then 2020, I found out my dad was terminally ill with dementia. So you know, I was doing a lot to try and help him, like get him into care, and like it was a very stressful time. And I understood that you know your body reacts to different like stress in different ways. So I figured maybe my hair kept falling out because of being stressed. But then I sort of hit like, you know, after he passed away and we got like the funeral sorted and everything, you know, I didn't have that constant specific kind of stress in my life, but my hair kept falling out. So I guess like finding out about breast implant illness, you know, when you're like scrolling through Facebook and you see like suggested people that come up, like, you know, you should add this person, and a girl came up, and I don't know why, but I was just driven to go onto her page. So I think maybe we had a few mutual friends, but it was random. Now Adelaide's kind of small where everyone knows everyone, so that's kind of normal, but she knew people from work, she knew people from my gym, and I was like, oh, I wonder who she is. And the first thing that came up on her page was you know, this is why I'm getting my breast implants taken out. I'm like, what? So
people do that. That's what my first thought was. People do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I read her story and she talked about like hair loss and joint pain, but the one specific thing for me was like she had dermatitis in her ears. And I've had that for years. And I honestly thought, because I go to a lot of concerts, I wear earplugs, that maybe like it was, you know, my ears being irritated by having earplugs in. And
something else that you just push to the side because you're like, oh, it's probably just this, it's probably just my body. But it's like when you, like you said, when you start looking back at all of them, you're like, okay, hold on here. Like I'm just dismissing this until it's normalized to myself. And then I'm just dismissing, and then it's a new thing. And it's like, oh, well, that's okay. It's probably because of these things, you know, and it's crazy how we do that. I'm sure men do it too, but I think women, you know, because we're very taught to just like sit down, be quiet, don't complain, just deal with it. So it's like, you know, my mom has fibromyalgia and she's like always feeling bad when she has to talk out loud about it, you know, so that's like, I think that's a core thing for women too, is that they're just afraid to, I don't know if it's like, it's not necessarily a sign of weakness, but kind of feels that way, or that's kind of how we've been taught. But to me, it's a form of strength to be like honest about what you're going through. And it's just that whole spiritual, like you said, we're 36 now. So it's like, fuck, I wish I would have known this, but at least we know now and we're not in our 50s, right?
Yeah, that's it. And like, you know, the amount of time in my life that like I haven't lost it necessarily, but it hasn't been quality time. So, you know, going out and doing walks, and then like having the worst hip pain just after a normal walk.
Yeah.
I used to take my dogs to the beach. Like, I'm only about 25 minutes away from my closest beach, and I used to take my two down to the beach and go for walks a few nights a week. But I realized that I'd stopped doing that because I like, my hips and my back were just in so much pain that I would get frustrated. I'd get angry, and it wouldn't be an enjoyable experience anymore. I also did CrossFit. I started CrossFit in 2018 and I loved it. I absolutely loved, like, the strength it gave me, the community, the members. Like, I'm still friends with a lot of the members now, but I just wasn't recovering from my workouts. And I went to see a dietitian because I think we were looking at, like, because I've had endometriosis in the past as well, and we were looking at like how I could eat to avoid that occurring again. Like, there are ways that you can eat that, that help your body. But then I also, like, found out there that I have irritable bowel syndrome, which I haven't always had. So that's possibly the implants, but it's also possibly the fact that my bowel has been the outside of my bowel has been messed with a bit through surgery.
I'm sure the implants aren't helping or weren't helping, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it probably depends on, like, some people are like, oh, my breast implants are fine. It's like, but that's why I said, I think it really also depends on your predisposition before you get them, right? Like, if your body was already freaking out and your immune system was already fighting other things, and then you add to that without anybody saying, hey, by the way, you might have an immune response to these foreign things going in your body, which they should be fucking saying, then that, so someone that it has no issues just ends up being like, perfect health, like, must be nice to be an upper class, and they get them. Maybe there's a good chance that they won't, just because they started off with, like, a cleaner, let's say, medical plate without, something else. So I think that that's like a huge thing too. Is like my biggest frustration, I'm sure you guys feel that too, is people that have them that don't want to, necessarily, maybe they don't have it, but it's like, well, I'm just going to, no, that doesn't happen because I don't want to admit that that could be happening to me. And I just think that's so unfair because it's discrediting your guys' experience and stories. Like, you might not have it, and bless your soul, I'm so happy. The last fucking thing we want is for people to be sick from this. However, there is a large portion already diagnosed, and probably even a larger portion that are going undiagnosed because we're not putting the, for whatever reason, And surgeons don't want to tell you that because they don't make money off of you explant, you're done for forever. But if you keep implanting,
you don't go back.
You keep coming back, right? Or you're supposed to, every 10 years?
Yeah, 10 to 15. So I had my implants in for 16 years. And part of the reason was because the 15 years kind of came in when Dad was unwell. Yeah. So my priority was Dad. Like, I wanted to make sure he was looked after. So I didn't, like, I sort of put it through to the side. But I'm like, the timing worked out the best because I think a few years ago, before seeing this woman's article, I probably would have had them redone. And not realizing that they were the problem. Yeah. I was considering going smaller, like, even though I'm a C cup, like, I don't need a C cup, like, especially doing CrossFit, they get in the way. You're clean, you whack your boobs, right?
We just started at a new gym, and I was like, all these new machines, and I'm like, that's my favorite thing about being flat chested is that, like, they never get in the way. So if I'm sitting there doing rows and, like, my chest is right supported and I'm just able to pull, and I know a lot, I was like, that is something that one big reason why I never did is because I didn't want to take 6 to 8 weeks off at the gym. It was like my saving grace. And it was like, I'll just learn to deal with my titties. Like, I'll just figure it out. Like, eventually this probably I won't care about this anymore. But the thought, like, my ego was so invested in the gym that taking off that 6 to 8 weeks was just not a possibility. And I hate chest. I hate training chest, the worst. But it was more like, okay, but I love back. Back is my favorite. And that's the opposite. And there's going to be, some issues there. And so it's crazy that when some people go right away, like, some girls I know have had their implants and then they go work out when way before they're supposed to. And you can see the separation of it. And it's just so sad that no one's actually told anything after. It's just like, oh, bye. Like, I don't know about your aftercare, but I don't think they do too much because they didn't fucking even tell you. Okay, so hold on. Let's go back to this because at the beginning, did anybody warn you of breast implant illness? Like, over in on Australia, is that, like, is there an FDA? Do you guys have an FDA that, like, regulates that stuff?
We have the TGA, I think, is this like the equivalent of the
Okay.
FDA, like the
Or Health Canada.
Therapeutic Goods Association.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, and they don't recognize, as far as I'm aware, through all my research, they don't recognize breast implant illness as a diagnosable medical condition still. They do talk about like some problems with breast implants and the breast implant associated cancers that we're now finding out about. So my implants actually were the ones that were recalled because of the cancer risks. And nobody told me. Like,
But like,
I don't,
so this is my question.
I,
If they have a recall, you know how you have vehicles? You'll get like a piece of
yeah,
mail when something's recalled on your vehicle.
yeah.
How
Oh
the
my God,
fuck
yeah.
do they recall breast? Like, this is the thing. It's like they're just gonna put it on like CNN at like 12 o'clock at night when no one's watching TV and be like, breast implants aren't good for you. And then she's like, well, we told you. There's a recall. Didn't you see it on the television? And it's like, no, you
Yeah,
need to
no.
set. Did you track those titties? Have you like found out where they are and sent a mail to them being like, hey, by the way, this could give you fucking cancer?
Yeah, exactly. And the car analogy, like I got a new car back in April. It did have a recall on it. It wasn't something that was life threatening all the time. It was like if you turn something off, it wouldn't turn back on. Text messages, phone calls, emails, like they just
Stalking you about your
I
fucking
know.
car. It's like your
And
windshield
then because I
wipers
didn't
might break, but we're not going to tell you that your boobs are going to give you cancer. Forget that.
mm,
That's
yeah.
way too much.
And that's where I don't know, like, surely we've got breast implant registries here in Australia, but there are two. So there's one that ran up until 2015, and then one, I'm pretty sure it's 2015. And then there was a bit of a couple of months lag, and then another one that started after that. Neither of them had a record of my implants. My GP didn't, but my GP that referred me on was the one that saved my life with that big ovarian cyst, and she's retired now. So I don't know whether the surgeries hold on to anything. And bless my surgeon, they're still a little bit old school with their record keeping. So everything's paper files. So when I went to my explant appointment, she brought out this file from 2006, like a little cardboard file. Like when she booked in my surgery, it was a diary. So
Yeah.
what the way I ended up finding out was like I had the explant done, and we can talk to that a bit
Yes.
more. And then found out about the cancers like afterwards, like through following people on Instagram and the Facebook groups. And then like I called the registries. I didn't bother with my GP, but I was like, how am I going to find out? I'm like, okay, I contacted my surgeon's rooms, and the nurse sort of had to go back through the 16-year-old filing system thing. And like she called me back and gave me like brand, lot number, serial number, reference number. Like it just blows my mind that I had something in my body that had a freaking serial number.
Isn't that kind of when you really think about that, like, and I think that's the craziest thing about this whole thing is that we get so wrapped up in the pretty part of it, the packaging of it, what it's going to give, not we, but in my mind, that's what I think. And then when you kind of step back from all of that, like the glamour part of it, it's like, it is a device. It's got like
Mm,
a shelf life. And, my always biggest thing was like, that I've read about this is, it has a shelf life and it can only hit a certain heat. But then when you go to put it in a human bodies on the inside are really hot. So why
mm,
is it that you have to store it in like more of like a cool room temperature, but then it goes in a human body that's hot as balls, and that's now it's all of a sudden like safe to be in heat? Like there's just so many things that I have questions to as to why
yeah.
it's being pushed that this is just safe and it's good for you. And I know for a lot of women it did help, and it did help and it made them feel good. But what sucks even more is that for years then everyone had to feel shitty and other ways, and it's just like you should be able to have had that choice to being like, hey, just so you know, this could spark, immune system problems. This could give you mental, issues. This could actually hurt you and give you more body dysmorphia. Just like FYI, be
Mm,
aware that this isn't like a fix all for, certain things, and there could be repercussions. Like I don't
yeah.
understand why that, well, I know why, because it doesn't make money.
Yeah. And
So
like,
mad.
and it's a really good point you make about the fact that people do end up like disfigured afterwards, and the anxiety it can cause people. Like I do have a lot of people that contact me via the podcast and just from my presence in Facebook groups, and they're like, they beat themselves up over having implants in the first place. And it's like, but we weren't told that they would cause this. Like maybe people getting implants now, I mean, no one should beat themselves up over a
No,
decision.
no.
There's a reason why that happens, right? Like, it generally comes from a place of insecurity,
Yeah.
whether it's social pressures, whether it's your partner being, grotesque and expecting you to do that. Very lucky that my current partner is beautiful and just supported me throughout this whole experience. We've done an episode together, and like
Oh,
he
that's so
surprised me
cool.
with, yeah, like, he sort of talked about like when you're handing something precious to you over to a surgeon, I'm like, oh, like, I'm precious to you. But like there will be definitely partners out there that put that kind of pressure
Oh,
on women to have implants, or have a lift after having babies and stuff. Like, no, give them the flick. See you later.
yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah. So there's reasons why people have them,
Of
and
course.
like, yeah, like I was saying, like we're not told of the risks of them by our surgeons. I don't know whether they didn't know about the risks 16 years ago when I had them put in. Don't beat yourself up over that, because it was something that you wanted to do or needed to do at the time. Don't beat yourself up about it.
I feel like
Absolutely.
it's
Like,
one of those things where it's like it's just part of your journey to learn. I think we all have that kind of moment with our health, whether that be birth control, breast implants, or like your fucking ovaries attacking you. Like everyone has their certain things, and like we'll say with women that go through like Botox dysport, right? Like so many people don't know the effects of Botox and fillers. And that one is actually harder to get people on to talk about over breast implant illness because it's just at the beginning where BII's been in this like kind of powerful movement. At least I think for the last 5 years, it's been a lot louder because I did the
mhm.
same thing. I was just stumbling. I don't even know what I was doing, but I was going on Instagram and I came across this girl and she'd hashtag BII and I was like, and she was talking about how she got disformed, like disfigured from her breast implant removal. And I was like, same thing, like people remove their breast implants. Like, why would they do that? I've
Mm,
heard of like
yeah.
rupturing, but like why? And she was just showing, and I think her name was Dre. I can't remember. She's from the US. And I just then hit the hashtag, and this is before it was blocked. And I just found so many accounts, and my mind, it was like the first big rabbit hole of Instagram that I fell down through a hashtag. And I was like, and then I found I didn't join the group, but it was this Nicole's group on Facebook, and there was
Yes, I've
about
heard of that one.
50,000 women, and I never went in it because I have no reason. But I just seen the number of people, and I was like, okay, this is way bigger. And so I started bringing up the conversation on my Instagram, and a lot of people got mad. But a couple people were like, "Hey, I think this might be me." And then all of a sudden I just started sharing things and on the podcast, and then we had our friends come on, and now it's just grown and grown. And that's the Botox thing is big because a lot of people do it, and a lot of people are afraid to come out about it because just like with breast implants, people don't want to hear it if they have it sometimes, right? Which I understand, but I just feel like for people that get hurt and are like survivors of it, it's just such a disservice to you guys. And so thank you for speaking out and sharing because it saves so many people, even if it's not them. Maybe these guys don't know, right? Like think about all the men that don't know what birth control does to women. Heck, we didn't even
Mm,
know what birth control does to women.
no.
So they could be just thinking, hey, she bitches about not having big boobs all the time. There's this solution. I can help you with money if that's the thing. They don't know that
Mm,
it's bad or they don't know about this yet. So maybe someone on our page stumbles across this and goes, oh my God, I've been, supporting her want for this, not realizing that I'm almost as handing her the knife and putting her on the table. Maybe I should be telling her she doesn't need these things because,
yeah.
for
Yeah.
whatever reason, it's like, that's what sharing is all about is you know, I don't have them, but y'all sharing it just reaffirms my decision. And when I'm having a moment where I'm like, I'm in Kelowna, there's boobies everywhere, and I don't have any, and I'm at, the beach,
Yeah.
and I'm like, God damn, it's very apparent. I come back to these moments and I'm like, no, because you would
Mm,
be the girls that you've interviewed with your body, you would immediately be sick. And they tell you it's not worth it, fucking listen.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Not to go off on a
Going
rant
back
there.
to when you were talking, no, that's all right. Going back to when you were sort of talking about like the reason, part of the reason why you didn't have them put in was because of having the time off of the gym. Like there's so much that you are limited with implants. Mine were, like I said, over the muscle, so I probably wasn't as limited as other women, but like I could never lay on my chest, like I could never like do rows like on an incline bench. Yoga where you like lay on the floor and like you chest is no, like it was horrible. Massages would sometimes be a bit awkward. And I have a friend who's a massage therapist, and she would roll up towels and put them underneath my shoulders when I was laying face down, because otherwise, like they were just really uncomfortable. I stopped being able to sleep on my tummy or my stomach. Sorry, there goes the Australian accent. And
I love it.
And yeah, there's just a lot that limited me when I had them. Yeah, for sure. So, I've actually, my partner and I will do this like late night bike rides down at the beach, and I have ridden my bike past the woman who had the story on Facebook, and I haven't spoken to her. So I almost stopped and was like, I need to tell you that you saved my life. Like,
I think
you know,
you should.
but yeah, I think I might
Imagine
like
being
pre-con her
that
on
person
Facebook.
though, and how probably in those moments that she has that vulnerability, she'll come back to that and be like, right, I'm saving people's lives.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But yeah, it was like seeing that story, like reading a story, having that whole like all my ears, like that's just so specific. And then I was like, nah, like I can't imagine a life without my boobs. Like, you know, they've given me so much confidence. The way I dress now, like, is dressed for having boobs. So I went off for a few months, but then I was like, nah, this is bugging me. Like it stayed with me, and started Googling it. And I came across, it was like a surgeon somewhere here in Australia that talked about not specifically BII, but talked about how some women choose to have their implants taken out because of some symptoms that they have. And then he listed, yeah, joint pain, muscle fatigue, just fatigue in general, hair loss, all that kind of thing. I was like, okay, like this is a thing. Yeah. Like it's absolutely a thing. And that's where like I started to go down the rabbit hole and join the groups. And I've heard about Nicole's group. I'm not in that one, but there was another one that had like 100,000 people in it. It's like an open group. And I joined that one. And I was like, if there are 100,000 women in this group, you know, watching people's stories, sharing their stories, that's not a handful of people. That's like a lot.
Big amount. That's why I was blown away. I was like, whoa. And this was like 5 years ago. I can't imagine what, you know, that grew to now, right? It's like, and that's good because that is, you know, social media has its shit and I have my beef with it. But that's also the beauty of it is, you know, because how did that happen? In a sense, it's like because medical practitioners don't maybe know these things, you know? So it's like you have to kind of rely on other people sharing their experiences to kind of piece it together of what could be happening with you. And for yourself, you have many reasons why, you know, there could have been other causing that stuff, right? But it was just like, so you got your explant or you figured it out that was BII and you're like, okay, you came to that agreement. What was explanting like? You know, I know that we've had mixed reviews of how that went for most people.
Yeah, so I originally got a referral to a surgeon that's pretty well known here in Adelaide for explanting and talks about en blanc capsulectomies. I struggle so much saying that.
That's a big
one. You're removing the capsule, but like in a certain way. And I had booked an appointment initially with him, but the wait was over 6 months just to see him as a private patient as well at the time. And like this was when you know, when you kind of plod along for ages and you know you've got these problems, but like you just like, you know, it's not really a thing. And then when you know, it's like whenever I've had an ovarian cyst, suddenly I know the pain's there. Once the scan shows me that the cyst is there, I can feel the pain suddenly. And it was like I was really starting to notice these things. And my surgeon, absolute perfectionist at what she does, but she is a woman of few words.
Yeah.
And 20-year-old Bianca was very scared of people like that. Like, like I was just like, oh, she's scary. Like, she's a lovely person, but just gets to the point kind of thing. So like I was like, oh, I'm older now. Like I'm a bit more like that myself. So I was like, I'm going to get a referral to see her. I know she'll do a good job, but I don't know what her reaction's going to be to it. So I had booked an appointment in. I was getting really excited. Then I got COVID. I caught it up in the Gold Coast, which is where all the like there's a lot of breast implants in the Gold Coast. That's a big thing there as well.
It's like your clone.
And yeah. It's like also like Miami. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I had to move my appointment back, and I was devastated. Like, we missed out on a few concerts and stuff, but I was like, oh, I was so looking forward to this appointment and getting the ball rolling on this. Seeing my surgeon, she's like, oh my God, you're all grown up. Like, I was like 20 the last time I saw her for my last appointment. And, she asked me what's happening with life and stuff. And, she sort of asked me questions like, have you had children? Are you going to have children? Because I guess that sort of changes, what they do in there. So because of all of my health problems, I most likely can't have kids. And in the last couple of years, I've made the decision that it's just not something for me. Like, I don't think I'll be able to carry a baby. If I can't carry an IUD, there's no way my body's going to survive carrying a baby. So it's just, I'm the crazy auntie. I'm the bad influence.
We're
auntie.
the same. We're not. We, for reasons of birth control, we're the same. I've not been able to conceive, so we're just not going to do that. If we do, we've talked about adoption, but that's a whole big thing, and it's a bigger decision. I feel the same way. It was just one of those things that's like, I just can't carry, and that's okay. Like, you can be the crazy aunt. It's actually a lot of fun, and you save a lot more money. And I hear you get gray hairs slower, so.
Well, I'm only just starting to get them now at 36.
Same,
and
just starting.
My younger sister, still
dying, but
it's like I see mine's all my natural color. There's not enough there yet to dye it, but like I'm keeping an eye on nice hair colors just for when it does happen. But my younger sister, like, she's gorgeous, but she started getting gray hairs before me. But I think even before kids, but there's probably a few more since she's had kids.
Yeah,
so
that's what I'm saying.
there's that difference. And like, you do save a lot of money. Like, we go to a lot of concerts, and I love my sleep. So, you
find the positive.
After making that decision, I'm like, oh, there's this positive to it. But yeah, I'm really close with my younger sister, especially. Like, I've got nieces and nephews from all my siblings. Some of them are grown up. Like, one of them's 23 and comes to work out with me. Like,
I love that.
So, like,
you have that connection.
It's a cool. Yeah, for sure. And I get to go and be a really bad influence for a few hours, go home to my quiet little house and go to bed, like, and get a good sleep, like, see ya.
Yeah, it's really the best.
So, like, it really is. So where were we? Oh yeah, talking to the specialist. Tangent.
See, that's what I told you. You gotta focus sometimes, but it's good. Keep I love that you went back to her though, because it's like kind of that's where your story started, right? So it kind of like not bookends it, but probably just, there's that comfort that she was there from the beginning. And although obviously you didn't have a good experience, the surgery was good for you. So you know that you're in good hands.
Yeah, for sure. So I sort of talked to her about like wanting them taken out, and she's like, oh, do you mind me asking why? Never defensive or anything. Like, she was like amazing. Mm-hmm. And I said, look, I don't necessarily love them anymore, but also I'm starting to see a few things like online, and I know, don't always agree with anything you see on everything you see online, but there's just a lot that is like happening to my body at the moment that I'm seeing that a lot of people with implants have, and it's resolving after they have them out. So she goes, okay, tell me what it is. And I told her, like, joint pain, like can't recover well from exercise, hair loss. I had this weird body odor, man. Like, it stunk
I've
so
heard
badly.
that where people are like, it smells like I was rotting from the inside.
Yes. Yeah. Mine's like someone who hadn't showered in weeks and never used deodorant and rubbed it in their pits. Like, that's
like, what? I just showered. What the fuck?
Exactly. And like, I used to be able to, like, I'm a morning exerciser, so I'd be able to go to the gym in the mornings. Like, I don't have a shower before I go to the gym. But like, I ended up buying my own home gym and quitting CrossFit because of the inability to recover from workouts, so I could do everything at my own pace. And it was just good timing because, man, I stunk like around that point. It was just so bad. And I was telling her all of this, and she's like, oh, okay. She's like, it's just interesting that it's only just popped up in the last few years. I'm like, yeah, I know. And I kept apologizing to her, like, oh, I'm so sorry I haven't come back sooner. Like, I know it's 10. She's like, no, don't. Like, it's fine. And like, so her, and I guess it sort of comes back to the fact that it's not a diagnosable medical condition here. She couldn't exactly talk about that specifically, but she was kind of like, look, what we can do, take them out. If you don't see these things resolve, you can always get them back in again. And I was like, oh, okay, that made me feel a lot better, because it was just seemed like such a big decision. And she's like, look, just a warning, you're going to have really small boobs. They're going to look a bit scary for a little while. They're going to be really empty at the top and all that kind of thing. So I prepared myself. Like, I'm so glad she said that. So we booked the surgery. So that was like maybe April this year. And then I had my explant on the 27th of June. So leading up to that, again, because my surgeon is like a woman of few words, she didn't really give me much on like, you know, she said, oh, you'll be able to wear like a soft crop top, like the one you're wearing today. It was like a sports crop thing. Would not have been able to wear that. Like, it was too firm. But like, you know, I see people talking about like the post-surgery bras with the zips on the front and button-up pajamas, zip-up hoodies, like all that kind of thing. So I made sure I was prepared that way. Even like how to sleep post-surgery. So when I was in hospital, I had to sort of sleep with my upper body up on a 30-degree angle. So I actually purchased like these memory foam things to mock that. But I had done that before going in. I'm so glad I did. Like, it was just such a lifesaver. So like all of that kind of preparation. And then, I had the surgery. So my partner took the day off of work. I didn't have to go into the oh no, he's amazing. I hope he can hear me, because he's out there like playing Xbox
like, what?
at the
Yes,
moment.
that's right. How amazing. Keep saying it.
So I didn't have to be at the hospital until lunchtime, which anytime I've had one of my other surgeries, it was like 7:30 a.m. So it was like, I was just so nervous. I was like so sweaty. It was a sweaty mess, as you can imagine. And you can't wear deodorant. Well, here you can't wear deodorant before you have surgery. You can't wear any moisturizers or anything like that. So like, I was like a mess.
Fantastic.
Went in. It was beautiful, like just the picture of beauty. And went in. Took the selfie, like, you know, when you see a lot of women talking about the way their skin looks, the way their eyes look, the colour of the whites of their eyes. So I took that selfie in the bathroom at a certain time of the afternoon so I could do that again the next day and, you know, after that. And, so I went in. I think the surgery maybe went for 2.5 hours in total. And, like, you know, I've talked about, like, how groggy I was waking up from surgeries before. Like, I woke up from this and I was like, oh, it's 6:30. Jacob will still be there. Like, you know, like, I was so awake.
So focused.
It was ridiculous. I was like, have I even had anesthetic? Like, what's going on here? And like, I was joking with the nurses, and my partner and I, like, you know, we're like a really sweet, lovely couple to each other, but like, we flip the bird. I don't know whether you guys sort of talk about, we like stick our rude finger up at each other all the time. So I joked around with the nurses that were wheeling me back to my room. Like, that's how awake I was. I was like, all right, so my partner and I do this to each other all the time. Can you give me a warning when I'm close by, just so that, like, you know, I can wheel in with my ring finger going, and like they were in on it. Like, so that's how, like, I've never been that awake and lively and full of energy waking up from a surgery. And that was probably one of the longest surgeries I've had. You're like, I think most of them have been
immediately 10 recommend.
I was like, who is this bird? Like, you know, she's, you know, super. Right, I just couldn't believe it. And like, Jacob stayed as long as he could after the surgery, but the visiting hours finished at 8. So that first night I couldn't sleep. Like, they've got those circulation stockings on with the machines that keep inflating and deflating. So anytime that happened, like, if I was dozing off, that'd wake me up. The nurses have to come in, like, exactly. The nurses had to come in super regularly to do my observations and stuff, and they were beautiful. They were so amazing. Like, you go through something like that and you just worry that people are going to judge you and treat you differently, but they were just amazing. Like, there was one that was like super quiet. She was like a little bit awkward, but I got her talking about dogs, and like, she was like my best mate. Like, after that, she was so cool.
Got to find that one thing. Got to find that one thing that gets them going. You're like, there it is.
The next time she came in, she had like a photo of her dog ready to show me. It was gorgeous.
I love that.
But about 1:30 in the morning, I needed to go to the bathroom for the first time since the surgery, and I'm used to waking up with like a catheter in because of the major surgeries I've had. I can't get out of bed for a couple of days, and I was like, I don't have one of those. I'm going to have to get up and walk. So the nurse came in, like, unhooked my drip and stuff, and I was a bit shaky on my legs, but there was no joint pain, and I was like, like, I don't want to count my chickens yet.
Yeah, of
like,
course.
You know, I don't want to, you know.
It's too good to be true.
Yeah, and I was like, there's a lot of painkillers in my system as well, so like, I won't get too excited about it. But like, went to the bathroom and then looked in the mirror, and like, it wasn't the greatest lighting, but I was like, my eyes, like they just look so bright. Like I could not believe how bright they looked. And like, you know, it was a really easy recovery for me. I didn't have a lift. It was just the explant. She took the whole capsule out as well. And like the scars weren't too bad. I had that foam sticky stuff on, and they kind of come in and check your circulation by poking your boobs, which was always fun. The day after my surgery, I still had the drains in, so I couldn't have a shower yet, but a nurse came in and gave me a bed bath. And I just said to her, look, I've had this really bad body odor for like years. I'm so sorry if I stink. And like we both checked and I didn't smell at all, like no deodorant, super sweaty, like, and she's like, you don't smell, you do not smell at all. I'm like, this is the day after the surgery, right? Like, how is this? Yeah.
Look at this ROI already.
It was just like, you know, if that was all, like, if that was the only benefit, or they were the only benefits, I would have been happy. But like, it just kept getting, like, sort of kept improving from there. So, so surgery was Monday, bed bath was a Tuesday. Wednesday, my surgeon came in the morning, took my dressing off, and like she took it off from my left side first. The lefty was the one that was a little bit bigger before I had the implants in, and I was like, there's so much boob there still, like it still looks booby, like I was expecting it to be ugly. And she's like, yeah, you've done well. And then she pulled the other side off, and like I call my right boob my trauma boob because it did look a little bit funny initially. So it was kind of concave in the middle, and then underneath it was a lot smaller, like noticeably smaller, and I couldn't look at myself for a few days. I read about the fact that breast tissue fluffs after, so people call it fluffing after you have your implants taken out. So I knew it would happen, but I just didn't want to, like, you know, beat myself up about having this whole thing happen by like keep looking at it. So I had my drains taken out, and honestly, recovery from surgery was a breeze. But having the drains taken out is the most disgusting thing ever. Like, and I got myself so worried about it that like my heart rate was super high, my blood pressure shot through the roof. Like my blood pressure, they were worried that my heart rate was so low in the hospital. They're like, are you okay? I'm like, look, I do a lot of fitness stuff. Like I do a lot of spin classes and hikes and stuff. Yeah, like I'm like, this is normal. Like, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then like my heart rate and my blood pressure shot up because of the drains. Like it was just more how I made myself feel about it. And the nurse that took them out was brilliant. Like once that was over and my heart rate calmed down, I could shower myself. I washed my own hair. I was like, I have super oily hair too, so I have to wash it every day. So it was like, oh my God. So I had braided my hair before the surgery as well, just because like I don't feel the grease, the oiliness quite as much when it's braided.
Yeah, it's tucked away from my face. I don't have to know it's there.
So I was able to do that within 2 days after my surgery, and they gave me the all clear to go home that night. So my partner picked me up. One thing I'd recommend is like have a pillow in the car, and make sure you, like, anyone who drives you home does go slow over speed bumps, because you're suddenly very
tender, I'm sure,
and very tender, and like things, you're a bit more jiggly. Things move more, so you do feel every bump. So so I sat with like a we call it a boomerang pillow in Australia, but it's also a U-shaped pillow around my tummy. So that was a massive help. So absolutely recommend that. For any surgery, like I've done the same for like when my cysts were removed and stuff. So my sister came to visit me a couple of days after I came home and took the photo of the back of my hair, just to look at the progress. Like the hair growth has been ridiculous, but she's like I opened the front door, so obviously a lot of natural light coming through. She's like, your eyes look so bright, and I'm like, hey, there's been this benefit. I set up to sleep in the spare room, because I know I can struggle a little bit with falling asleep after coming out of hospital, and my partner was back at work, so I didn't want to wake him up. He's like, you don't have to do that. I'm like, no, I want to do this. Like, it's like a little den for me as well. I can have a TV set up in there.
My little nook.
Just and I honestly bounced out of bed some of those mornings. Like and what I'd been used to is like getting out of bed in the morning and my ankles and my feet and my hips were so tight, like sore and inflamed, I'm guessing, that like I would hobble for a bit. And that didn't happen. Like I was just straight up like storming around the house with like all this mobility and like just normal. And yeah, that's when I sort of realized, okay, this is real. Like this isn't just the painkillers. This is absolutely how my body was supposed to feel for the last 5-10 years. I don't know. I can't even remember when the joint pain settled in. But yeah, there was like that I just couldn't believe that. It was just so obvious so early on. So about the 3-week mark, I was ravenous. Like I was so hungry. We went out for dinner and like we had a fairly big meal. 45 minutes later, like I'm starving, right? And that was around the same time that my trauma boob started to fluff up. Like, so yeah, like, and every day. And like, I'd actually said to my partner before the surgery, I'm like, if I'm not ready to see myself, like, is it okay if like you don't see me for a while? He's like, whatever you need, like, that's absolutely fine. And I knew he wouldn't react badly to it, but it was just like more a me thing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's
So,
vulnerable.
yeah, so finally, sorry for anyone that watches this that might know me, but like, finally when I had started to fluff up, I was like, look, like you can see them now. And yeah, so that was a huge thing. Like, and yeah, I just couldn't believe what my body was doing. Like, you know, it's been through so much.
Yeah.
And
That's fair to
yeah,
say.
it still does what it could to heal after having all this, like, like going through as much as it did. Just trying to think of what else.
So June. So you're about just at your 6 month.
Yeah, so just after Christmas will be 6 months post-surgery for me. So I absolutely went through a bit, like I almost feel like it was like a honeymoon period. So the first 4 months were like a lot of progress and I felt like a superhuman. There were these moments where I was like I love music. And there's a drum kit in the background that I bought because like I had a moment where I was like, oh, I can play drums a little bit, so I'm going to buy drums. It's just, I'm very impulsive like that. But I don't know how to read music and my partner's a musician. So I was like, right, I've got like all this clarity. I'm going to learn how to play music. I'm going to like be able to play everything. And like going back to work, I was super sharp. So like I have to do these reports and then get some feedback on them and do a lot of changes. And before with the brain fog, like that would have been so frustrating, like trying to go like, what, how did I get to that point? How did I make that thing? That's like, I'm back to normal now. I'm like, you know, okay, cool. That's how I put it together. This is how I'll fix it. I need to make sure I fix it for all the other things that are the same. So that mental clarity is there. There's still a little bit of like, it's just, I'm a little bit scattered sometimes, but I think, you know, I just need to.
Or is that just like social media and life? Like, you know,
yeah, that's it. And like,
there could be
if I put my phone away, like sometimes I need to put my phone in a different room and then I can focus. But yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I've seen a lot of improvement with that. So yeah, 6 months now. But yeah, my hip pain started to sort of come back at around the 4 or 5 month mark, and I'll sort of talk more about that at the end and what that ended up being. But yeah, like it got a bit frustrating. I'm like, you know, I have felt amazing. Like there's not really much that have changed apart from bringing exercise back into my routine. I've sort of eaten the same across both. Like I'm not perfect with my food. I love chocolate like so much.
And like, how do you not when you have all these holidays and like 50% off chocolate for like 6 months straight? Like, come on. I can't say no to 50% off chocolate. Come on.
No. And like one other thing that's kind of been happening that sort of started to happen around the same time as the joint pain is I noticed that I'm putting weight on, and I can understand a certain level of weight gain when I went from exercising a lot and every day, and I was specifically doing heaps of cardio workouts just to get like my heart health up, and like, you know, just for, I don't know, like there was just this, what's the point in gaining too much strength before having a surgery where I wouldn't be able to do anything, which is a silly way of thinking, but I had been in your mind before that. Yeah. Just Bianca's rationalism sometimes isn't great. So like, you know, I can understand gaining a bit of weight because I suddenly stopped and I was able to walk for the first couple of weeks. And then after that I could do basic bike rides, and it was about, I think I had a 6-week appointment where she probably would have told me that I could do everything, but it was at the 8 weeks. We had to move it to 8 weeks, so that's when I could start exercising. But I'm still gaining weight, and I think that may be because of the other thing that I'll sort of talk about.
Yes.
Like afterwards, because I think this is another important thing to share.
Very important.
So the other thing that I'd probably add as well is I tolerate like less sleep better. So before, I'd kind of have, if I had one night of no sleep, I wouldn't be able to focus very well the next day. I'd get very moody and grouchy, and now that's now that's a heck of a lot better. And that was another thing that I attributed to, like, I'm in my 30s now. I probably need more sleep, more rest than I'm giving myself. That is a heck of a lot better now. Like, obviously I still get a bit of brain fog because I can still sort of trail off and forget where I'm going. But yeah, I can sort of do maybe 3 days of limited sleep before I sort of do struggle at work. So that's a massive improvement.
It's wild to me how many people will say, like, and a lot of people are the same way. They get really excited, they see a lot of symptoms improve, and then they stall or go back in some. And like you said, you just have to have grace and give your body time, right? Like if you had them in for 16 years, and that same with like weight gain, when we talk about that too, or and muscle gain, like it takes time. Some things take time. It takes time to get there. That was 16 years of having them in, maybe 16 weeks, like, because we want to be fixed now. If that's the problem, like, why aren't you fixing? But then your body's like, I need some time to get myself back to where I was, to recalibrate. But most bodies end up doing that when you support them. It takes time. And we're such enough right now, like mentality that it's like, okay, I gotta, and sometimes some of these last a couple years for some people, and some of them disappear right away.
Sure.
And I think some women, they don't disappear at all. And then all of a sudden they're like, what the fuck? I just did this explant. And, but hopefully their body just needs a little bit more time. Right. Cause
for sure.
For yours, it's probably like, yay, like I can just like chill now. Right. Like, well, can it chill? Because that's the next part. Like then coming through all of this, then you're finding out, okay, these foreign objects aren't great. So what about that birth control thing that we all love to talk about on the show?
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
And like, from what I've researched, the general sort of thinking is for each year that you've had breast implants, expect to still have symptoms for like a month for each of those years. So I could probably expect to start to feel normal about 16 months after having my implants in. So I was just like, blown away by the fact that I started to feel good so quickly. And then also with the fluffing of the breast tissue, they sort of say 6 to 12 months for that. And 3 weeks later, my body was like, I'm just going to grow you a new little boob. Like, I was, really lucky.
Bodies are a miracle sometimes though, right? Because it's just like you gave it that space to do that. And it just came back to you and was like, thanks, girl. That's what I needed. Here you go. Here's your titty back. Like.
Absolutely. Something else I was going to say about that as well.
Did you want to talk about your IUD? Like, how did that kind of come up? Has that been in the last 6 months since you explanted, or are you just like, hey, get everything out of my body?
So I had like a pretty good experience with the Mirena IUD initially, but I don't know whether, at that 4-month mark after my explants, some people sort of say that there are some hormonal things that can happen when you've got the implants in.
Yeah, fair.
I've never had hormone testing. I don't know whether our testing in Australia is quite as good as what I hear about in the US, but I suddenly started having some issues with it. So I would spot like quite regularly, like in between what I would normally consider as a period, which was just a week of spotting anyway, when I'd normally have a Mirena cycle. Intercourse became painful. Again, like in the mornings before I needed to go to the bathroom, I'd be quite sore through my pelvis. And then there was, the hip pain and the weight gain. I was like, something's not right. And thinking back, like I had a perfectly healthy belly button piercing when I was 15, and that grew out of nowhere. So I'm like, and then like thinking back to the surgical mesh, like my body just doesn't want anything in it. that's not supposed to be there. So I started again, like, I talked to my GP about it, and this is a different GP that sent me off for my explant referrals. She's like, I keep going to the registrar, so they're around for a period of time and then they go. But like, they've all been really brilliant. Like this one especially is very knowledgeable, but she's like, like a lot of people tolerate it quite well. Sometimes it will move, but it's very rare that it'll move. And I did, like, when I was experiencing this pelvic pain, I went to like a specialist imaging centre here in Adelaide, and they had a look. They actually can sometimes see if there are nodes of endometriosis on there. Okay. And they're like, oh, look, your marina is perfectly in place. We can't see any ovarian cysts. We can't see any endometriosis. There was one point where I kind of scooted forward on the couch to get up, and there was this pain. It just felt like someone had like stabbed me in the pelvis. It was like unbearable, and like there'll be these like almost like someone's clawing at my like uterus. Like it's just like. And like when those moments happen, I'll be like, oh, like to my partner, I'm like, I'm having another one of those things. He's like, oh, like what can I do? But like, there's nothing that anyone could do in that moment.
Shove your arm up there and just rip it out.
Pull it out.
Get it out.
Which I wouldn't recommend. Some people are doing like pulling their own IUDs out.
I was just kidding. Don't
like,
do that.
You see your yeah, no, but like on that topic, like there's in my research about the marina, people are like, this is why I did it myself. I'm like, no, like, do not do that.
I understand trust is gone, but we still need to go through certain avenues to do things okay.
Absolutely. So like sort of looked at a few YouTube clips, and there's another Facebook group that talks about IUDs, and it's not just specific ones. So I sort of jumped in that and read people's stories, and there's some horror stories in there. Like there's people that it's moved up into the abdominal wall, like gross. Like, how is that happening? You poor thing. But like, oh, wow. So I sort of did that research, and like it to me, my partner and I are both very considerate of each other, and I was like, this needs to kind of be an us decision. And I've worked myself up so badly about it. And like, I've got some traumatic relationships I've been in the past that would have like, don't you dare do that. Like, don't you change life for me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm still getting used to the fact that my partner is not like that at all. And I was like, I'd bring it up every now and then. I'm like, I think I need to have this out, but it wasn't a proper conversation. And then like, I've just worked myself up one morning, and I'm like, can we spend some time this weekend talking about, this is like a Friday morning. Can we spend some time this weekend talking about like having my marina? And he's like, just take it out. Like, I was like, what? He's like
prepared this whole presentation and all these receipts. Yeah. It was just that easy.
My mouth was dry. I was nervous. I was shaking. Like that's it. I was just so. And he's like, I thought you were just going to take it out. I'm like, well, I feel like this is an us decision. He's like, it's your body. Like, we can look at the other options. Like it's fine. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, book it in. And I went off and made the appointment straight away. Like I just
knew.
Yeah. I'm very, very lucky that way. But yeah, made the appointment, and I did let the surgery know specifically that they were having it out, that I was having it out. And got it out within the next couple of weeks. I had asked for some like hormone testing, because I have had people reach out to me on the Instagram and like on my Instagram after listening to the podcast and saying, oh, have you had your hormones checked? And the specific hormone test that my doctor referred me on to required for me to go straight after my period finished. But I was spotting that much and for that long that I didn't know when my period was. Yeah, so I haven't had that test, and I probably will now, just to see, what's going on, if there is anything that they can find by blood tests. But just sort of had it taken out, and I couldn't believe the immediate relief of pressure that I felt. And like I had the day off of work. Like I sort of do a 9-day fortnight at the moment, just because I want to spend some more time doing Bianca things. And I'd organised to catch up with my sister and my niece and nephew that day, and I had told her, look, I'm having the marina out. I don't know how I feel, because she had one put in because I had a good experience with it initially.
Of course.
And so she knew what it was like having it put in. Yeah. As much as I had a good experience with it, that night that I had it put in, I was just like, like this is just horrible. Like the pain was pretty bad. Like it's like a horrible cramping period pain. And I messaged my sister, or called her as I was leaving the doctor's. I was like, yeah, so I feel great. Like, are you still happy for me to come around? She's like, what? And it was just, yeah, she was like really expecting me to not be okay. And too much information, but I peed a lot that day. Like I was constantly getting rid of water, and I wonder whether that was like fluid retention, perhaps, because I didn't drink any extra water than what I would normally drink, but I was just like constantly
Just getting it out.
like, yeah, getting it out.
Relief
And
all over the
then
place.
on the way, I'm lucky my sister's house has 2 toilets.
Yeah.
Like it was the best place to be that day.
Yeah, work
yeah,
with just one toilet with 20 people. It's not the day to do that.
No, definitely not. Yeah, heads up. And like driving to my sister's house, I go around this big roundabout, and again, going back to the fact that I get used to stuff and subconsciously change the way I do it to allow for me to keep going in life, I guess. Yeah. I had braced for pain driving around this roundabout, and there wasn't any pain. I was like, oh, right. So I've been used to pain and didn't know it.
Yeah.
Again,
another
Bianca, what are you doing? And then yeah, spent the day with my niece and nephew, and like my nephew's nearly 2, he'll be 2 in February, so he's like a wild child at the moment, like running around the house with him, getting on the floor, getting up, and I was like, my hip pain's gone, like already. And I didn't take any painkillers to have the marina out, didn't have it take any afterwards. Like the actual experience of it wasn't too bad. So yeah, wasn't on any painkillers, and my hip pain was like gone. And my pelvic pain's gone. Because I did get a referral to my old gynecologist, because we're like, maybe I've got endometriosis again that's causing this pain, and it's not happening. Still not 100%, but I'm guessing there's an element of healing that needs to happen before I'll know for sure. So I think what I might do is reschedule that appointment to a few months after, because it's booked at the end of January, reschedule it just to give my body time. Like I think I spotted, like after having the marina, I spotted for a week, and then possibly I think I had a period for like a week after that, but I'm not too sure. I haven't had one, like a proper one, in 2 years, so I'm not quite sure what to expect now. Totally but fair. Like I just feel so much better. Like I just cannot believe it. So obviously, I'm not telling everyone going. Well, I did say to a friend the other day, because she said she had one, like, get it taken out. She's a doctor, and she's like, oh, actually, like I've got some good experiences with it. But if you are noticing things that are happening,
but I have to say for a second though, are you are you just afraid? Because, and I totally get it, and again, I am blessed as well with a spouse. When I told Grant that I wanted to be off birth control, it is a conversation you need to have, because if you're not wanting to have a baby, or like for myself, like I can't keep a baby, so it's like I have to be very aware of it, or I know that I'm going to go through miscarriages, and I just don't want to put us through that. Or my body. I don't think that that's fair.
Your body, right? The hormones changing.
And all the scar tissue builds up after every single time. Like I really don't want to have to do that. I know if we have babies, it's going to be adopting, and I'm okay with that. But that was a big conversation after my first miscarriage we had together. I was like, I can't go back on birth control. Like I just cannot do it, what it's doing to me. But it is a big conversation. So I'm very lucky to have a spouse as well that was like, whatever we need to do. And I've been tracking in the Flow app for almost 3 years now. My period is within 24 hours of when it says it's going to show up. But what's cool now, being off of it, and I'm excited for this, because you'll get this too, is that you can actually know when your period's coming, and when you're ovulating. You just feel it, because birth control in any form blocks your natural cycles of anything, so you cannot predict anything in your body. And like the other day, I was literally had a big meeting yesterday, Thursday, yeah, and I was like, I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna get my period tomorrow. Within like an hour, that motherfucker showed up, and I was like, and then, but before I never would have felt that, or ovulation. And now I'm like, I feel like I'm getting my period. I'm like, wait, hold on. I just had it 2 weeks ago. Oh, okay, I'm ovulating. And we just, but you have to be conscious of when, that time is that you can get pregnant if you're not. And I feel like a lot of relationships put pressure on sex so much, and we're so busy doing different jobs and living, crazy lives, that you feel like that's going to be then taken away from you if you do that. And so you want to stay on that birth control, that contraceptive, because then it doesn't disrupt, or you don't have to work extra hard on that sexual relationship, especially if you already kind of struggle finding the time to get that. It's like, oh, well, then now we can have sex a couple days or have period, or, you can, but like, you don't want to, let's be honest, or whatever. And then you got those couple of days around ovulation. And so say if your spouse works away for 2 weeks out of the month, like there's a possibility you're not having sex for like a month. You know, that's a big
Mm.
conversation and a big change to a lot of people's relationships that they're just not okay and to be there. And it just sucks because listen to all the things already you're feeling. And like 2 years coming,
Yeah.
being 2.5 years being off birth control, I've never felt so much better. I'm still falling out. Like I still have the acne, the cystic acne, but that's going to take years. I was on birth control for 15 years. It's going to take time for those hormones to rebalance. And I kind of have some mistrust with doctors right now, so I haven't gone and get those tested. But I think it's a really good idea. I'm working up to the idea. I have a really good doctor that's going to read my panel. That's not here. He's actually in Europe because I built a relationship
Yeah.
with him. He's like, "Oh, I'll read your panel and be honest with you." I was like, okay, because I just don't fucking, because I'll go in there and I'll be like, oh, your acne, you could just go on birth control to fix this. It's like, no, I don't trust you anymore. Like, you're done with
No,
that. And so
no.
it's like,
And you do
big
read a lot
decision.
about so many women who lose their libido when they're on birth control as well. And like I've definitely noticed a difference. And even just like my senses, I feel like they're a little bit more heightened. Like that, you know, it felt like I didn't feel some things sometimes. Like, and yeah, like it just that's sort of coming back now as well.
Yeah.
And like one thing that blew my mind, I'm surprised that I wasn't told about this, considering my medical history. But the marina can sometimes cause ovarian cysts, right? And like, you know, I've had enough. Don't need any more.
Excusez-moi. What?
And you know what? You know who told me? It was my younger sister,
Oh, not the
just before
doctor.
she had her marina. Yeah, not a doctor. My younger sister, she had read, which I probably should have done myself. But they, like, I didn't think I was allowed to open the box. Like, it's this giant freaking box, like that you
But who
get.
wants to read that
And
giant pamphlet? You're the doctor. Just freaking tell me the Coles
it's as
notes,
tall as
bro.
me.
Like,
But yeah, and like my sister like probably does a bit more research. So her husband was 37 and had a stroke like out of nowhere. So they're very cautious about a lot of things. And the reason why, because I've been on the contraceptive pill since I was 16 on and off. And then it was this current medical surgery that I see were like, oh, look, and they asked if I get migraines, and I get 2 migraines a year. Stopped having them though since I had the marina put in, but I also didn't start having them until the implant. So that's a bit of a test for me at the moment. Just like, are they going to come back?
TBD.
Because my first, yeah, we'll see how we go.
Yeah.
But like this surgery, we're like, oh, you get migraines, so we can't put you on the pill because there is a stroke risk. And that's like part of the reason I think why my sister chose not to go on the pill, because their family went through so much. She'd only had a son 6 weeks before this all happened. So yeah, they're doing everything that they can to avoid
that.
either of them having a stroke.
Yeah.
So that's why she went with the marina, and she read the pamphlet, and she's like, she was calling me, and I was like, oh, this is like, I hope there's not another stroke happening. Like, you know, I sort of panic sometimes when this day and age when everyone texts you and you get a phone call, you're like, oh, what's happening?
Someone's dead for sure. That's always my first thought.
Yeah.
Where's my mother?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And yeah, she was like, oh, just like, I know you've got the marina and like I'm reading a pamphlet about it now. Did you know that they cause ovarian cysts sometimes? And I think it's like what is called a simple cyst. So it's one that can go away without surgery. But I've also had some of those
But like,
that I haven't talked about.
I don't want any of them. Whether they take care of them.
They're painful. Like they're just not fun at all. And the ones that I had when I was younger, what my doctor told me to do was go on the pill to make them go away.
So we had three birth control episodes actually, and I can't exactly remember what it was that Mindy had, but it was kind of the same thing where it was like what she was trying to fix was a direct side effect of that, and it's like informed consent. Let me know that that's a possibility and I can make the decision if I want to still suffer like this or if I want to take a risk and
Mm-hmm.
possibly suffer from that. That should be my choice because I have to live with it for the rest of my life and you're getting fucking paid
Yeah.
either way. So why can't you just tell me those things? And like you said, if I would have known that it could have and I don't know if it is, but there's a good chance that it took away my possibility to have a baby. If I would have known that, I don't think I would have cared so much about being a 16-year-old slut if it was like, hey, by the way, you might not ever be able to have babies if you do this, just as an FYI. I probably would have made the decision a lot bigger, but instead it was like, oh, it's going to take your acne away. It's going to make you feel better. You don't have to worry about having a baby and it's going to solve all your problems. And you're like, sign me up and it's free.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we're 36,
Yeah.
we can't have babies. We're looking around, everyone's a hot mess at our age, and we're like, common denominator.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like, I feel like there was a lot of people that I went to school with that got sort of married, or like people that I've known through the gyms and that kind of thing that I've worked in and gone to, that are, a couple of years ago were starting to get divorced. Like, how much of that might have been because of hormonal issues that we didn't know? Like,
And
it just seemed like so many happening at
yes,
once. I
and
was
I
just blown
didn't know
away.
this, but it actually changes birth control actually changes your lust. And so if you think about it
You're attracted to different people.
exactly, and you're different on phases different of your cycle, you're attracted to different things. When you're on your ovulation, you want someone like more caring and understanding and like more of that beta feminine vibe. And then when you're, getting your no, sorry, other way. When you get your period, you want that like soft, be nice to me, da da da. And then when you're on your ovulation, when you want to procreate, you're like, I want that rugged alpha man. And so women that are suppressing their natural cycle, and you hear about women divorcing after they have kids and stuff. And I half wonder, does that have to do because your attraction changes because you're on birth control, you're off, you have a baby, you're going through all those things, and all of a sudden now you're settling back down and you're not going on birth control, and you're like, now I don't find my man attractive for whatever reason, right? It's an actual thing that happens. And nobody's been told this stuff, right? And it just kind of blows my mind a little bit that it's like, and that's why I said maybe men don't know about birth control. Like my spouse didn't know until I
Yeah.
told him, and he watched me go through it. And he's like, it fucking wrecked you. I don't want you on that. Where it's like, if I didn't share that with him and told him, or he didn't know, he would probably be like, why are you being fucking crazy? Same with breasts. They're probably, like I always say, oh, I have small boobs. I wish I had bigger boobs. So if I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get implants, my spouse could be thinking by saying, yeah, you should, that they're literally just
But
trying to support you and what you said you
yeah,
wanted. They don't know that it
yeah.
comes with X, Y, and Z, or that maybe you have body dysmorphia and they're just validating your dysmorphia. You have to kind of be really open about these things with your spouse so that you can create a
Mm,
healthy boundaries, right? And he could just be having the good intentions of wanting you to be happy with your body. And if that's what's going to make you happy, who's he going to argue, right? So it's like,
yeah.
it's a really important conversation, I think, knowing what each other's insecurities are so that you're not helping feed that body dysmorphia, like subconsciously, I think is important
Yeah.
as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sounds like we're both very lucky with the
Yes.
partners that we have.
And I
Yeah.
don't think my
Yeah.
ex-husband, like that wasn't a thing for him. Like that, I think I've been very blessed to have men that have just, I've always been like, well, I have an ass. That was the one thing. It's like, but at the gym, you can build yourself a booty. You can't build yourself your tits.
Mm.
You can build the line. So
Nope.
my thing has been like, I've just developed this deep chest line, and then you just wear certain like bras. And it's like from certain lights, it looks like I have a chest. But I can build my
Yeah.
ass. So I've always focused on building a big butt. So it's like I can at least build that, right? So but everyone's different. Like I
A
said,
juicy booty.
exactly. Yes, big and booty Judy is what I want to be said. But it's all a journey. And like I said before we jumped on, I would have done the surgery if the money was right. If it was before I got into fitness, I 100% would have got there. That's why I think it's important for people, whether they got their surgery or not, to read like Dr. Amanda Savage Brown's book, because it teaches you she teaches you how we're just this breast obsessed society and why some of us go to that, let's say extreme, if you will, and it's just it goes way back. So it's just really cool to see the scientific, like psychological point in it, because I think sometimes some of us get caught up, and again, in the glamorization and the vanity of it, but there's actually really underlying like generational shit behind why people even modify themselves to fit in, right? Like it's not just limited to breast implants. See, right? Like, and I will admit, I think this is beautiful. I think it's art, but I can 100% admit it's because I was insecure and I thought that this would bring me a level of confidence, and it did. But what did it do to my health? I don't know, man, to be determined.
Yeah.
I'm
That's another
covered.
thing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm probably not going to get more for a bit until I kind of make that conscious decision of I don't put anything in my body, especially over the last couple of years. Is this the right thing to do now either, right? So it's like we're all there. We're all figuring it out. And I think the biggest part, which I'm going to ask you next, but I think the biggest part is to have grace with yourself. So for those that are going through this, what would be your advice if you were to get if someone wants to get implants and if they want to get an explant, what would your personal advice be?
Okay. So for people wanting to get breast implants, absolutely do your research. Um, I had someone reach out to me who had listened to my podcast because she had Googled breast implants because she really wanted them. And the first thing that came up for her was breast implant illness. So like, I was like, whoa, how did that happen? And she sort of thanked me because it was my podcast plus multiple other things that made her decide not to get them. Like, you know, I can't, people aren't necessarily going to listen when I say don't get them, because like the decision is coming from something else, like, you know, body dysmorphia, like being self-conscious about how they looked, pressures from, you know, external sources and stuff. But honestly, like the way, like I talked to my partner about the fact that I've probably lived like a half-life for so many years because of how I was feeling, and, you know, didn't necessarily make plans to do certain things because I'd be like sore and tired, or like if I was doing a big walk in the morning with my friend, I'd be in bed the rest of the day because I was so sore. Like my experience isn't quite as bad as some that I've heard, but it's just not really worth it. And like, oh my God, how good are small boobs? Like and I think like,
I saw boob envy, but I do like my small boobs now. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
I never wear a bra. Like, y'all, I haven't worn an underwire bra for, I tried one the other day and I was like, I'm a phony. Like, I just don't, but before I would literally have like cutlets and double things just to make it look like I had that was all over.
That's what I did in my year 12 formal. Yeah, we call them chicken fillets, like those stick on, look, they look like chicken breasts, right? Like for my year 12 graduation, I wore one of those under a water push-up bra just to fill a normal dress. And it wasn't even like a massively booby dress. I just, you know, like, there just weren't things that were made at the time for people with small boobs. No. But I look at some of these photos of these women after explanting, and they just look so healthy and so amazing. And like, you know, from recovering from it, but also just like with the small boobs, I'm kind of envious because, like, you know, don't mean to brag, I've ended up still with a C cup somehow. Oh. They're just not quite as, I don't know. Of course. I think because I have put weight on over the years, so there's probably that, and you know, as I lose weight, they will decrease in size, which I'm looking forward to. But
it just takes your boobs, and they just goodbye. You don't need them anymore, and that's why most bikini models get them, right? Because they're trying to fill out that perfect package for stage presence, and I don't think most of them are advised. Like, hey, BT dubs, especially in that industry, especially in competition. You're just going to attribute all of that, most of them do, to the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right? And that's sad.
Yeah, but like, how can you maintain that look of a bikini model when you can't exercise, and like, you know, your thyroid might end up playing up, because it's happened to some people, again, with the marina. Like, people have had issues with their thyroid, which is why I'm thinking I've possibly put on weight. And I'm sort of waiting for that to resolve itself. But yeah, like, you know, how can you maintain that look over the years when like the way that you exercise now, you possibly won't be able to, because you'll have the joint pain, you'll probably won't recover from your workouts, and you know, not to mention the way that like physically your face and your skin changes. Like, you probably end up, there's Sarah Harris, who is a model in New Zealand, so like our neighbours over the ocean, and she had her breast implants removed, and she's a model, and like, just looking at like the change in her face from before to after explanting, like, just incredible. Yeah, it's just huge. So she was almost on the verge of losing work, I think, because of how bad the implants had impacted her. So I guess, yeah, when it comes to like thinking about implants, like, sit with the idea for a bit after you've done your research. Think about why you're wanting them, and like, you know, you're absolutely beautiful without them. Like, you do not need them, and like, there's so much. Like, you know, I don't look at the size of someone's chest when I'm just determining whether they're a good person or not.
No, I usually decide how much boob envy I have. I'm like, oh, damn, those are some nice knockers. I'm at 100% jealous there. Like, I will, if women catch me, it's because, look, I'm never going to pay for my own, so I'm just going to stare at yours. Just please accept me this way. It's just how it is. You can stare at my ass all you want. You can touch it. I don't care. But like, give me the benefit, please. I'll like look at the gym. I'm like, oh my God, I've just been staring at her tits for 2 minutes. Like, she probably thinks I'm such a psycho. But it's just, sorry, it's just envy, because I'll never get to see that. So, you know, we can have boob envy, but
yeah. I had a friend who would like purposely slam the brakes on her car so that she could like put her hand out
I'm so
to like
sorry.
save me, but like, so sorry I ran into you. But yeah, like, it's that, there's so much more that you can bring to the
Yeah,
world than your boobs.
totally. Yeah.
So yeah, like, it's not worth making that decision, I don't think, in my opinion anyway, to have them put in when there's just so much possible negative stuff that's going to happen. Yeah. And like for anyone who, like, when it comes to explanting, like definitely, like, function wise, like look up and talk to your doctor about how you need to prepare for it and stuff, so that it is a smooth journey. But also, like, again, like I said before, don't beat yourself up over making this decision to have them in the first
Yeah.
place. And just like we've said, like, just be kind to your body and understand that things are going to take time before you feel better again, before you feel well, before things start to change looks wise. Like, there's just have a lot of patience and kindness to yourself, because yeah, you're going through a lot, and you definitely need to give yourself that, because yeah, like, you're not alone.
No, no.
Like, there's so many people that are going through the same thing as
Yeah.
well at the moment. So yeah, there's this army of strong women that are going through this, and it's like the ones that are sharing their stories, like, just hats off to
Yes.
you.
Oh gosh, that's why we'll keep sharing this. I think, having at least one or two episodes a season on this is super important because everyone's stories
Mm,
are very similar, but they're also very different. And to me, when a story sticks is when you have repetition of it, right? So, like, okay, fine, you don't have to say that there's a medical diagnosis with BII, but how about you talk to the 6 women we've had on our show that are feeling amazing after they've got them explanted? And I think the one thing I want to go back to is you said how you see women with their small boobs after explant, you see how beautiful they are. I honestly think it's because they've had to go through the worst journey of loving themselves, and they actually do. And that is like radiating out of them of being like, this doesn't
mm,
define me. And in fact, nothing out here defines like beautiful as long as I feel beautiful and my health and my inside. And I'm not saying that anybody else that has them thinks otherwise. By no means. Like everyone goes through their own shit. But like for me, I don't know if you feel this way, but I'm going through, I want to have a long life and I want to be healthy. So I'm really evaluating what am I putting inside my body. Furthermore, what am I
yeah.
telling the next generation? This is my biggest question. I feel I'm now at a time and in a position, whether we have, a Joe Rogan sized podcast or Color Daddy or just a tiny little Canadian one, there's people that listen. And my message, I want people to love themselves. And I feel like for
Mhm.
sure you definitely love yourself when you're doing this. This is an action of love. I just want to make sure that people are aware that when that happens, you can have gratification, but you could be sick. And what sucks is that people stay in that sickness because they don't think that it's their boobs. Because I think for me, I wouldn't want it to be, because I think I would attach myself to that and my
Mm,
worth to that. And if I took them out, then I would not have any worth, because forever I've always thought that I didn't have worth because I didn't have boobs. So I think that, there
mm.
would be a big mind fuck for me. I think that's why I've never competed, because I could get myself to that stage lean, but I don't think I would love my body any other time. I would be one of those women that got worse body dysmorphia because I'd always be like, this is the best I've ever looked. And I think that's why I never went and got,
Yeah, I'll feel better
yes,
when I look this
exactly.
way. I will, yeah, I'll have the confidence when, and no, like, work on right now, like, what you're doing to be healthy, how you're helping
Yeah.
people, what you can bring to the world. Like,
Exactly. And you for
yeah,
sure, like
absolutely.
I'm all for people doing honestly what makes them feel good, but at what cost, right? And again, what's our responsibility to the next generation? Like you said, your mom was like, "Oh, there's something wrong, fix it." My mom was that way with medication. "Oh, something's wrong, medication, medication." So now at the end part of my life, I'm like, and she's very much this way now too, of being like, what is the root cause of it? So I guess for me now at this beautiful part of my journey, it's like if I go do something like say I want to go dye my hair even, I'm like really evaluate that. So instead of doing it every 6 to 8 weeks, I've pushed that to every 3 to 4 weeks, because I'm like, what am I doing this for? Who am I doing this for? I used to get my nails done. I used to get
Mm,
my eyelashes done, but I was going in debt doing that. And then my value went into that because when I couldn't afford it, I was like, well, I'm not pretty anymore. And I was like, oh my God, I am wrecking myself by doing all these things that I think I need to do to be beautiful when really I could spend zero fucking dollars and just go to therapy, which I never even done, but just by talking to people and trying to figure out how to love myself. Because
yeah,
when people say things to me that make me feel good, they never have anything to do with my physical body. Ever. Yes, that feels nice. Like, yeah, tell me about my booty gains, please. I love it. But I love so much more when someone comes to me and they're like, you inspired me to be myself, or you motivated me to do this, or thank you for just being you. Like, it almost makes me want to cry right now. Like, to me, that's what matters, and that's what I'm chasing. And I just
Yes.
want everyone to know,
Yeah.
like, that is such a beautiful thing to try to chase, that it's okay to not want to be attached to just vanity. It's good too. Your outside package. I'm not saying I didn't put some mascara on for my Australian babe here, but what I'm saying is, like, your value, like you said, is so much more than that. And I just hope that for the next generation, we can keep pounding that in, because social media has
Yeah.
made it seem 10 times more important than it actually is. So, yeah, like,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's like, talking about my niece, like she's 4 years old now, and the things that I want to compliment her on are her tenacity and how kind she can be. And like, she can be absolutely crazy too, which is so much fun. And like, how much she makes people laugh. Like those are the important things. And I think I don't even realize that I'm doing it, but then like on some reflection, I'm like, oh, like, she's a pretty girl, but I don't know if
yeah,
I've told her that, because there's so many other things that like I just value about
yes.
her so
Yeah.
much more. Like, yeah, she's a wild child and a mini me, and
You want to
yeah,
hone in on
like
that. And you don't want her to grow up in
that's
a world where she feels like she has to mutilate her body to fit in. So you're going to hone in on those unique things that, we're made to believe are weird, and we should be quiet with ourselves. And I think that we've all gone through this so that we can help the next generation. And that's what I mean. It sucks for everyone that went through an explant or is going through this. There's one of a really good friend of mine. She wants them out so bad, but there's just no way she's going to afford it. And because it's not a
mm,
medical emergency, technically, she's stuck with them. And it's just the most frustrating thing on the earth that there's no help for this. There's no education on it. There's no funding. There's just like, oh, well, you did it yourself. Too bad. And it's like, no, they weren't informed.
mm.
And so I know, like, there are women in the States that are trying to work with regulations to get some laws put into place. Like, FDA is putting black box warnings on these implants for a reason. But do the
Yeah.
patients see the boxes? No. So,
No, I didn't like. It's not like they gave them to me and I had to take them into
yeah, and you're like, "Oh,
surgery.
this has a
Like,
black box. I know what this means. Still put them in, please." It's like you if your surgeon
yeah,
didn't tell you, you don't know. That's where it's important to have grace. Even if your surgeon told you this could happen, still have fucking grace
mm,
with yourself, because whatever you
yeah,
did is a part of your journey. And whatever it is, the lesson that you need to learn is there. So you have to learn it. You can't take it back. So don't go down that, because that's where it leads
exactly.
to depression
Yeah.
and anxiety. But you know what is exciting? What you can focus on is there's an answer, possibly. And there's a group of women that
Yes.
are going to be behind you until you figure out what it is. And you can be vulnerable and messy and be like, hey, I smell like a fucking dead man under a bridge that's ate nothing but onions. Is this normal? And you can go see, I think tons of women will say, yeah, that's normal. And then you don't have to feel alone.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep
Yeah.
paying
Absolutely.
all these things to try and fill to make yourself feel better, or you don't have to keep blaming yourself. Like, single moms that have to go through this, they're like, oh, it's just because I'm a mom. No, no, let's not normalize being sick, guys. It's
No.
common,
Absolutely.
but let's not normalize it. That, I think that's my biggest, like, let's not, everybody's like, oh, everyone has anxiety, that's just normal. No, no, it's not.
No.
And it's not because you're a
Yeah.
bad person or people
Yeah.
are bad people. It's that we're normalizing living in pain, mentally and physically, because
Hmm.
that's what makes all these big corporations money. Healing certainly fucking doesn't. Spirituality does not. But making you hate yourself for everything that you are sure makes a lot of fucking people money.
Yeah, yeah. I'm blown away by the cost of some people's surgeries. Like I was really lucky that mine didn't cost much in comparison, and that I didn't have to wait for very long. But yeah, there's definitely some massive fees out there, and I guess there's one thing that I would also like advice wise for people explanting, given the fact that we are vulnerable and it is expensive. There are a lot of people out there that are trying to sell you like this supplement or this thing, that's and I'm just worried that they're preying on the vulnerability of these people. So just be really careful if you do have someone trying to sell you something, that it's like, yeah, I've had one specifically where I looked it up and I'm like, oof, I'm actually allergic to a lot of the stuff in this thing you're trying to sell me. So I got away. But yeah, there's some people out there that are preying
On the
on you. So
explant.
be
Yes.
careful.
Yes.
Do your research and be
100%.
careful.
And I could see that too, like, because there's always money to be made where fear could be on the table, right? And the unknown. And people are always looking for that answer. We've seen it in the last couple of years, looking for that answer to the problem. Sometimes it's just not that easy. But in that moment, you're like, yes. And you put your trust in and you're like, this is going to solve it. And then it doesn't. And your world crashes 10 times more. And it's like, yeah, just be careful because even if someone's helping you explant, they could still be looking for money too, right? Like, that is also
Yeah.
a place and an industry that can make money. So just always be, like you said, do your research. Talk to the women that have been through it in your area. Find women in your area, I think, that have gone through it because they'll be able to tell you the good surgeons and people in that area. And I'm pretty sure everyone says too to have that on block capsulectomy, like make sure you're not just going in and getting just the implants, make sure they're taking care of your entire chest and making sure they're checking other things
Mhm.
because implants can leak onto lungs, to ribs. We've heard that it can travel, like, and if you don't get that capsulectomy or whatever and they leave that scar tissue, right, that's what it is, scar tissue in there, they're gonna,
Yes. Yeah.
that's staying in there, that's actually one of the biggest reasons you're sick, so they need to also take that
Because
out.
that does absorb all of the chemicals that the outside of the implant is made of. So you actually still end up with those chemicals apparently still in your body if you leave the capsule there. I didn't have an en blanc capsulectomy, but she did take the whole capsule out with my surgery. And I think the en blanc is really like great when there is a potential
Yes.
leak, like saline implants or ruptured silicon implants. That they take the capsule out with the implant in it and then cut it up and have a
That's
look.
crazy.
So yeah, mine wasn't en blanc, but I personally didn't
Yes.
need it.
Yeah. But just
So
making sure that,
yeah,
if
there's
you do need it,
definitely.
you're getting that. And that is a conversation because I've heard some people don't. And that's how I fell across this girl, is that she didn't know that. And then she had to go for another one and she didn't have very anything
Mm,
left. And she was one of those people that was so excited to feel better after explant and didn't. And then she goes to a better one. It's like, well, because you still have the toxins in your body, essentially, she got that out and then she started healing. So it's like, just find people in your area. There's tons now, like, follow our podcast. We share every week we're sharing, definitely stuff on BII that comes out from all of our guests that have been on. Make sure you're following the Bianca too, under could be, which is could be
could it
BII
be?
when you're going to look it up, because she's sharing stuff too. And all of the women in this community are very vocal and it is so empowering because they don't give a fuck. Like, you know what I mean? Like in a good way, where it's like, this is my story and you're not going to take this away from me, no matter how like unpopular opinion this might be. And I just absolutely love it. So please keep doing what you're doing. And thank you so much for coming on the show today. Is there anything else that you would want to share? I have a feeling like I would love to have you back on like in a couple months, like, 4 or 5 months. Like, let's see where you're at with all of this and with the other one exited. And let's see what your body has done all on its own, right? I'm excited to see that. But is there anything else that we didn't hit today that you would like to maybe share with the community before we sign off for the day?
Um, I guess one thing that I forgot to sort of share was the fact that like when my capsule came out, it was full of calcification, and my surgeon mentioned that, but she didn't tell me that the concern was the breast implant associated anaplastic large cell lymphoma. I think I've got it right, BIA-ALCL, which is one of the cancers that's known to be caused by breast implants. And I had no idea that was actually a concern. And when I went back to my appointment, she has said, oh, the labs haven't come back yet. And she was really worried. I was like, what is going on? She went and checked and they came back and I'm fine. But yeah, that's one thing. Definitely make sure that your surgeon is getting the capsule checked, because yeah, it's important for your peace of mind, but also like for your health that it
Yeah.
happens. But yeah, like thank you so much for all of the awareness that you're sharing about this too. Like it's such a big thing and I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And all the way the other side of the world pretty much from Canada, like just blown away by
That's
that.
so
Like
awesome. I know. I was like, would you be down? You're like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, now we got to figure this out. Where are you in the world exactly? Like, holy shit, you're all the way over there. Okay, well, we can make this work. I had an interview with a gal from Shanghai, so we still had the same thing. And it was like through the height of their
wow.
lockdowns, and she kept getting kicked off her VPN, and we had to restart the episode like 5 times, but we did it because I think it's so important. I think that BII isn't just obviously a Canadian and American thing. It's all over the world, and
Yeah.
everyone is kind of like coming to the understanding that this is a global issue. And that's beautiful and terrifying all in the same, because it means that a lot of people are hurt, and that's terrible, but a lot of people are going to be able to heal together. And in that healing, in this
Yes.
one situation, look how much it's opened you up to helping others, to helping yourself even more through your health. So just like, it could just be one of the things, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I did. This was amazing. I was worried. I was like, oh man, like, let's put some questions. I didn't even look at a damn question. I told you we would just flow so well. So we'll have you back on again. But thank you so, so much, guys. Make sure
Absolutely.
I'll tag our beauty in all of this. Don't worry, guys. So I'll make sure that she's on there. Go follow her podcast. If you are an explanter or looking to it and you want to be on the show, I'm sure either of us, we could even do like a three-way here, right? Like, we can have your show, our show, we can have
Yes.
our girls on the show, we can have guests. Like, what's most important is sharing. And I think you can agree that once you share, that ripple effect goes out, and you see how much you could actually impact people's lives in a positive way by just being yourself. It gets kind of addicting. You're like, oh, what other tea about
Yeah.
myself can I spill to inspire people?
Yeah,
Make
for
sure
sure.
you reach out to either one of us, guys, if you have any questions. I know our explanters are always there to answer, because they had a community answering for them that helped them through. So you are
Yes.
not alone. There is a giant community. Either we're flat chesters from day one, we are explanters, we're just supporters of there's women too that have breast implants that support this, that are like, hey, this isn't me, but it happens to you. Y'all are the real fucking MVPs. Let's just take a minute for you guys,
Mm.
because you are able to see other women going through that and acknowledging it. Please do not discredit these stories. I'm going to find you and kick your ass. No, I'm just kidding. But make sure following us.
Me too, if it's in Australia.
I can fly there now, so watch out. I might actually just
Okay.
make it. I've always wanted to
Beauty.
come down there, except for the big spiders. That kind of freaks me out. I'm not going to lie.
You're fine in
Okay,
Adelaide
done.
then, because we
Okay.
don't have the
I'll
trapdoors.
come to your
Yeah,
part
yeah.
then. That sounds so.
And we have
Oh,
wine.
done. Well, if you ever come to Canada, you can come to Kelowna. We call ourselves Kelowna-fornia. So we're like the California of Canada. But we have tons of cannabis, and we literally live in wine country. I'm a stoner, not a wine drinker, but I moved here, and now I just love going to the wineries and enjoying all of that, because the world is beautiful, guys, and you deserve to love it and live your life to the fullest. So if you are feeling sick and you got those titties and you want to talk to us, our DMs are always open. We've got such a big community. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much, girl. Make sure you guys are following us, subscribe, like, all those things that I'm supposed to tell you, that fancy YouTubers tell you that I don't know how to do, because we're just Canadian over here.
Awesome.
Right? I'm like, whatever it is that I'm supposed to do, just go and do that. Thanks for listening, guys. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Bianca. Until next time.
Thank you for having
Bye.
me. Bye.
Thank you guys for stopping by the show today. We appreciate you so, so much. If you like this episode and you want to see more, make sure to show us some love on our Instagram page, the Be Real Babe Podcast. You can follow us on YouTube. Make sure you're turning on those notifications for Apple and Spotify so you get notified as soon as an episode drops. Or you can become a member of our Patreon page with extra content and early access. But make sure to stay tuned for more realness coming to you next week, babes.